ruled the world? Which Mongolian leader created the largest contiguous land empire in history? Genghis Khan. Which Macedonian king conquered the Persian Empire by the age of 30? Alexander the Great. Which French general became emperor and conquered much of Europe in the early 1800s? Napoleon Bonaparte. Who was the first emperor of Rome, formerly known as Octavian? Augustus. Which Egyptian queen was the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic kingdom? Cleopatra. Which Zulu king revolutionized warfare in southern Africa in the 19th century? Shaka Zulu. Who was the Sun King of France who built the Palace of Versailles? Louis XIV. Which U.S. president issued the Emancipation Proclamation during the Civil War? Abraham Lincoln. Which leader of the Huns was known to the Romans as the Scourge of God? Attila. Who was the first female pharaoh to rule Egypt with full powers of a king? Hatshepsut. Which Roman general was assassinated on the Ides of March? Julius Caesar. Which Russian Tsar westernized Russia and built a new capital on the Baltic Sea? Peter the Great. Which South American liberator helped several countries gain independence from Spain? Simón Bolívar. Who was the first emperor of a unified China? Qin Shi Huang. Which British Prime Minister led the UK during most of World War II? Winston Churchill. Which Spartan king led the 300 at the Battle of Thermopylae? Leonidas. Who was the longest reigning pharaoh of the New Kingdom? Ramses II. Which Iron Lady was the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom? Margaret Thatcher. Who founded the Persian Empire and was known for his religious tolerance? Cyrus the Great. Which French Maid of Orleans led an army during the 100 Years' War? Joan of Arc. Which U.S. founding father is known as the principal author of the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson. Which Soviet leader led the USSR during the defeat of Nazi Germany? Joseph Stalin. Which Indian leader used nonviolent civil disobedience to win independence from Britain? Mahatma Gandhi. Who was the Virgin Queen of England during the defeat of the Spanish Armada? Elizabeth I. Which Carthaginian general crossed the Alps with elephants to fight Rome? Hannibal. Which king of England had 6 wives and broke away from the Catholic Church? Henry VIII. Who was the first president of the United States? George Washington. Which Roman emperor famously legalized Christianity? Constantine the Great. Which Russian empress was known for expanding the empire and the Enlightenment? Catherine the Great. Which Japanese unifier ended the Sengoku period in the 16th century? Oda Nobunaga. Who led the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution of 1917? Vladimir Lenin. Which Norman duke conquered England in 1066? William the Conqueror. Which Indian emperor of the Mauryan dynasty converted to Buddhism after a bloody war? Ashoka the Great. Which Frankish king was crowned Holy Roman Emperor on Christmas Day, 800 AD? Charlemagne. Which Ottoman Sultan was known as the Magnificent? Suleiman I. Who was the first president of South Africa after apartheid? Nelson Mandela. Which Queen of England reigned for 63 years during the height of the British Empire? Queen Victoria. Which Muslim leader recaptured Jerusalem from the Crusaders in 1187? Saladin. Which Aztec ruler was in power when Hernán Cortés arrived? Moctezuma II. Which Cuban revolutionary led the 26th of July movement to overthrow Batista? Fidel Castro. Which U.S. president led the country through the Great Depression and World War II? Franklin D. Roosevelt. Which king of Macedon was the father of Alexander the Great? Philip II,